And we were sent down to the naval base at Charleston, South Carolina. Now, Charleston was a big East Coast naval base, had a big shipyard, and that's where we joined our ship, which was known as the LSMR 503. LSMR stands for Landing Ship Medium Rocket. And that's what we were. We were a floating rocket dump, if you will. Had a lot of firepower. But anyway, that's where we picked up LSMR 503. We joined it there. The ship itself was built earlier that year in Houston, Texas, by the Brown Shipbuilding Company. And the crew sailed it on a shakedown voyage down the Houston Ship Canal and out around the coast of Florida and up to Charleston. It was at Charleston where a lot of the more secret equipment was put aboard, like the radars and the fire control equipment and some of the guns, and everything was tested there. The Brown Shipbuilding Yard didn't have that capability. That's where we got, in a sense, our first glimpse of what war was all about, because I'll never forget, we were at a pier there, and in at another pier came this destroyer. And the name of it was the Rodman, R-O-D-M-A-N, the destroyer Rodman. And it had a hole blown in its bow that you could have driven a Greyhound bus through. Well, what it turned out was the Rodman had been hit by a kamikaze out in the Pacific. And so many, at that time, so many Navy ships were being devastated by these kamikazes that they would patch them up, the Navy ships, the ones that could make it through the Panama Canal and could sail that far, were sent to East Coast facilities for repair, because both Pearl Harbor and all the West Coast Navy yards handled the serious cases that couldn't limp home that far. They wouldn't have made it, say, to the East Coast. So they had to send through the canal and up to Charleston, and I'm sure to Norfolk too. They were sending these kamikaze damaged ships. So at least we got firsthand information and a view of what war could be. But as they say, we stayed there at Charleston until about June 1st. And that's when we went up, we sailed up the coast, the East Coast, around Cape Hatteras, and where did we come back to? Where we had been before, Little Creek, Virginia, again at the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, where it goes into the ocean. And Little Creek was sort of our training headquarters. Now the ship was ready. It was just a question of getting the crew to understand how to run everything and so on. So we would go out, and we did this for about a month or so. We would go out like on a Monday and come back on a Friday. They had a bombardment island called Bloodsworth Island. That's up in Chesapeake Bay, and it was a place where we practiced firing rockets, firing the guns, firing. We even had mortars on board the ship, and we would do all that. And so there was all sorts of practice like that. And so we got around Chesapeake Bay pretty good. And in fact, on one little cruise, we went up the James River near Norfolk. We went up the James River and anchored overnight right off of Jamestown. Now, Jamestown, Virginia, was the first English permanent settlement in America. It didn't mean much to me at the time, except I knew it was a little bit of history. Before I get off of this, I'd just like to say a word about that. If you ever get east and don't visit the Jamestown, Williamsburg area, you're missing much of what this country is all about. Especially Williamsburg, which has all been really reconstructed under the generous grants of the Rockefeller family. A lot of people may not like some of these millionaires, but believe me, the Rockefellers did a lot. And if you've never been to Williamsburg, it's to miss colonial history. We went back many years later with our children, and I just can't say enough about a visit to Williamsburg. It's truly living history. But anyway, at the time, we realized where we were to get back to the Navy again, and old LSMR 503 went back to Little Creek, Virginia. Now, about that time, what that was in July of 1945. And something unknown to us at that time was that an atomic device on about the 15th of July was detonated at Alamogordo, New Mexico. And they found it worked, of course, but we didn't know a thing about it. So at the end of July, it was around the 1st of August, we were ready for sea and got loaded up. They loaded us with ammunition right to the gunnels, and we were getting ready to head for the Pacific. Well, we left, as they say, I believe around the 1st of August. There was 6 ships, rocket ships as we call them, LSMRs, in our flotilla. There was LSMR 501, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they had a command ship, which was a smaller ship, but to keep up with us, it was a landing craft infantry type of ship. And on there was, I guess what you'd call the captain or commodore of the flotilla. And he was the big boy. So altogether there were 7 of us ships, and so we cleared the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, and we were out about a day or so off the coast of Cape Hatteras, where frankly it was quite stormy the second time around. That's when we got our sea legs, or found out we didn't have the stomach for it. Some of us had it both ways. I don't know how Bryce made out, but I don't think I ate too much there for a while. But anyway, it was while we were going down there that over the Radio Shack they came through with the news about the atomic bomb being dropped on Hiroshima. And at that time, I think they said Hiroshima, makes no difference. But anyway, here we were, just kids, but boy, did we realize the impact of what it was. We weren't thinking of the fact that it was going to perhaps help end the war sooner. We thought to ourselves, hey, somebody could use that on us. As young as we were, that came to our mind. But anyway, there was not much we could do about it. We kept sailing south. We went by the Bahamas. In fact, we went by San Salvador Island, where they say Columbus first landed in this continent. And then we went through the Windward Passage. And the Windward Passage is between Cuba and Puerto Rico. And and of course, the Caribbean is truly just a blue, crystal clear ocean. It really is something to see. And that's where you see flying fish. Of course, when sailors would tell us about flying fish and we hadn't been out on the ocean, we'd sort of keep it to ourselves and wouldn't answer them back, because we weren't sure whether they were pulling our legs or not, but the flying fish, they had like dragonfly wings on them. They had two on either side, and you know, so that sometimes you'd get up in the morning and you'd find one on the deck because they'd be flying all night, skimming the ocean, and maybe they got a little too high and sailed right into the side of our ship and landed on the deck, you know, and that was the end of them. So they really were the flying fish.